Hi, this is Professor Homa, and I'm going to take you through creating this flag that you see on screen right now. This is the finished version, and I'm going to take you through what we did in class in terms of building the flag on 3 layers with the stripes, the blue box, and the stars. And I'll do this in 2 parts so that we do the stripes and the blue box first, and then I'll save the stars for last. So I'm going to start this from scratch, so I'm going to start a new file, and it's going to be the size of the flag itself, which the width is going to be 10 inches, and the height is going to be 5.625, or that could be rounded off to 5.63, and I'll hit OK. And there's my new document, and before I do anything I'm going to make 3 layers down here in my layer palette. The first one I'm going to double click on the layer name, and I'm going to call the first layer stripes, and it has this light blue color that you're seeing right here is the identification for the layer, meaning when you click on an object you'll see a blue outline around it, where the bounding box will be blue. I'll hit OK, and I'll make a new layer by hitting on the new layer icon in the layer palette, and I'll double click on layer 2 name, and I'll change that to be blue box. That will be like the blue rectangle, so I'll just call it blue box for now. And again, the identification number is red, and sometimes it's better if that color is different than the shapes that you're creating. I'll hit OK, and then one more layer I'll make is going to be for the stars. So I'll double click on that name and call it stars, and that has a green identification layer. So when I click stars or I select stars, they'll have a green outline around them. Okay, now I'm going to start first on my stripes layer, so make sure you select your stripes layer, and then I'm going to put my layers away for now. And on my stripes layer I'm going to make a red stripe, and I'm going to duplicate it and just alternate so that there's just white of the background behind it. So I'm going to start now by going over to selecting the rectangle tool, clicking once on the page and putting in my width, which is 10 inches, the same width of the flag, and the height is going to be 0.43, and this was figured out by taking 13 stripes divided by 5.625 and coming up with this number of 0.43. Now we're not going to make 13 stripes. Now I'll also change the color of this to be a red fill and a stroke of none, which is the red slash. And I'll use my selection tool and just move it to the bottom of my page. I'll make sure it's at the very bottom by using my reference point here. I'll click on the bottom right and just make sure it's at 10. The X is at 10, which is over here, and the Y is at 0. So that's the bottom. Remember, 0, 0 is the origin point over here. So that's in position that I want. And I'm going to make a copy of this by drag copying. I'll hold down my Option key and I'll drag this shape up to the top. And I'll leave go of my mouse first, then my Option key. If I leave go of my Option key before I leave go of my mouse, I'll just be moving it and it won't make a copy. So this is my second stripe, and I need 7 altogether. There'll be 6 white areas in between, but there'll actually be 7 red stripes. So I'm going to hold down Option and just make a whole bunch more. 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 extra ones, there's 7 altogether. Now you can see they're not aligned and they're not distributed, so they have the same amount of space between them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that. Now I could even move some of these in between so I don't have to worry about them being lined. But even if they're not, maybe I'll move a couple aside here. And I'll highlight all of these stripes. Now you can highlight all the stripes by using your cursor or your selection tool and selecting all these. Or you could use your layer palette, and if you click on the circle, not the dot, but the circle, it should select all your stripes or everything on that layer, on the stripes layer. So with everything selected, I'm going to go up here to my Align tools, and there's also an Align palette that has even more features than are shown up here, but I'm going to use Horizontal Align Center. That means if you look at that little vertical line there, it's going to align all my centers, the horizontal centers, on a straight line. So sometimes the terminology is confusing, but if you look at that, where that line is going, that's how we're going to align them. So I'll click here, and it lines them all up. And you can see they had even moved everything a little bit, so I'm going to use my arrow key and just nudge things over one little bit. So everything's now aligned, and I can even see here I'm still at 10 and 0, so everything's aligned okay. Now I'm going to distribute. To distribute, that's going to put even space in between. I'm going to use Horizontal Distribute Center. And that, notice that actually I'm going to use Vertical Distribute Center. Again, these terms are confusing, but you want to look at the line. So I want to distribute them based on where those lines are going. So I'm going to use that one that'll put space, even amounts going up. So I'm going to use vertical, distribute center, and even if you use the wrong one, you could click it and see what happens, but I'm going to choose this one. And now you can see I have even space between all my stripes. And I'm done with my stripes. When I'm done with my stripes, I can lock the layer. And I'm going to move on to the blue box layer. And I'll select the blue box layer, and I'm going to draw a shape. I'll first change my fill color to blue, and I still will not use any stroke color. And this time I'm just going to drag my rectangle over, and from your instructions that you have in class, it goes down to the 4th red stripe. So I'll drag it down there, and I'm not sure about the width yet, but I know from my sheet that I have that the width of this should be about 4 1/4. So it's close. I'll select the reference point on the left side and just move this up to 4 1/4. So if it's not perfect, it's pretty close. You could zoom in, and you can do different ways to zoom in. I'm going to Command plus on my keyboard and zoom in and kind of look where it is on the bottom. If you're still not sure, you could use View Outline to see how that lines up. And this is lining up pretty good. And I'm going to scroll up and see how it's aligning on the top, and actually it looks pretty good. Everything's aligned pretty well, so I don't have to really change anything. I'm going to take it out of outline view back into preview, and there's my blue rectangle, or my blue box. So I'm going to do Command 0 and zoom out again so I see my whole page. And these are my stripes and my blue box. The next thing that I'm going to do is my stars.